Thank you for joining me today. If you would not mind introducing yourself to the viewing audience and
Okay.
telling us about what class you teach with your institution.
Okay. My name is Tracy Johnson Hall. I'm in the business school at William and Mary, and the class that I'm currently using Excel the most in is undergraduate core operations management. So this is a required course. Um, it is face to face. It is a credit and a half, which means we meet for 13 occasions basically in half a semester format. So I have a very, very small window to get to know these students and to work with them. Um, and we cover things like demand forecasting, process flow analysis, the kinds of Excel uh, skills, I guess, they're displaying are really applied. I'm not teaching them about Excel. I'm asking them to apply what presumably they've already learned somewhere else to do specific things in an operations management context.
Okay. Wow. Wow. And you said that's a junior level course?
Yeah, well, they might be juniors or seniors. Yeah, so they're in the business school. They are at least one. They're at least in their second semester in the business school.
Okay. So I assume since this is a core class, that this is a large class.
Well, large for us, I mean 60-ish.
Okay.
60-ish, yeah.
Okay. So how was your experience with grading and managing the class prior to using XPrep?
So, I really want to provide content that's tailored to the students, meaning while there are many good textbook resources where the assignments and the homework are provided by the textbook provider, it's hard for me to justify that in this environment, particularly because the course is so short.
Mhm.
And even though I've been using ebooks where I just take certain chapters from various textbook providers,
Mhm.
it's been kind of clunky, and I've developed my own content. So I provide these homework assignments, and the homework assignments are formatted in Excel already. Basically, the student takes the file that I provide them, they do all their work in it, and they turn it in. So depending on the semester, I might have between 2 to 3 sections, so 5 sections a year of students. Class sizes vary from say 45 to 60 at any given
Mhm.
section. And they would have these two homework assignments in this half semester course. And the homework assignments were based on real data, sort of like a little bit of a mini case study, to try to give them the applied skills in context instead of just I'm solving a problem and it's sort of floating here around and has no underlying context or story around it.
Right.
Um, but my what I have found is that everything I do, nearly everything I do in the classroom that really enhances the student experience, tends to require more of my time.
Mhm.
And the tension that I had to manage much more carefully before I started using XPrep was it was very difficult for me to grade in a timely manner, even when
Mhm.
I had a graduate assistant. Um,
Right.
and so that while the homeworks I thought were good and valuable and did a good job with learning objectives, the students weren't getting feedback very quickly. And the demand on me in terms of grading and being consistent was enormous, just
Mhm.
enormous,
Mhm.
and very, very compressed into the back half of the semester because that's when the class is, and also compressed in those last few weeks of the semester. So it was challenging.
Right. I can imagine. I can imagine. And I am also a professor and I teach business courses. And
Mhm.
I know that there is such a demand for a quick turnaround. And we get a very small window to grade, provide
Right,
feedback, and all of those things. So
right.
it can definitely become stressful and time consuming. So I definitely can relate to that. So, how has your experience been since you started to use XPrep?
So I've been using XPrep now probably for 4 semesters. And it's definitely been an evolving iterative experience because as with anything you change in the classroom, you have to take the time to see how it's actually going to work, and you don't get it all done in the way you want it in one iteration.
Mhm.
I'm now at a point where I can assign these homeworks. I can assign different versions to different sets of students. I can have them view their feedback. In other words, they can look at their scores with feedback and they can have the opportunity to resubmit.
Mhm,
So there are choices I can make about whether they have the opportunity to resubmit, how many resubmissions over what time,
mhm,
et cetera. But, other than, really just spot checking where something minor may have happened, a student, interacts with a file in a way I didn't anticipate. Usually it's them
mhm.
not following the instructions. Um, but
Right.
other than those kind of things, I'm virtually 100% able to rely on ExPrep to deliver graded files, and the students are getting them back as soon as they submit,
Mhm,
which is, an immense improvement. Now, I'm still, importing the grades most of the time from the XPrep portal into my Blackboard site. And there are a few little things, if anybody's going to use this at William and Mary, if they want to talk about like kind of how to think about setting this up and some things with our learning management system, et cetera, I'm happy to discuss that. But it's completely changed how much time I have to spend, and what that enables me to do is to spend more time on the things that I think really add more value to the
mm,
students,
mhm.
in particular, working with them when they have questions and things like that, but also keeping the assignments fresh, and updating them because this enables me to update them pretty quickly and still maintain that ability to get the grades back relatively soon. Now, you know, probably like most instructors, I'm still tinkering with things, and I'm sure I always will be. So one of the things I have as a goal for myself right now is to investigate further how I can use XPrep to give better feedback, more meaningful feedback that really helps them advance in terms of their understanding of the material.
All right. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that you speak on the time saving factor for express. That's one of the things that we hear the most. We've had professors who would spend, up to 30 minutes per assignment just trying to grade all of the cells and check all the formulas. And we can do that in under 60 seconds. And so it
Yep.
definitely can be a game changer
Yep.
for professors. So, is there anything that you want to share as far as your assignments and how you
S-
kind of
So
anything you want to
yeah,
show?
let me just share. I'm going to share the grading tab from one of my assignments because I realized that it's hard to kind of visualize what it is we're talking about. But
Mhm,
if you look at this file, now here's what I found, because
mhm,
I'm starting to collaborate with other faculty who are using it in the business school, and we definitely can learn from each other.
mhm.
What I found is my homeworks tend to look and feel a little more complicated than some of the other faculty because
Mhm.
unintentionally. But what I
Right.
have is I have this whole scenario at the beginning, and then they're working their way through various tabs, and then when they get to this is the answer file. Okay,
Mhm.
so the answer file, this is something the students do not see,
Right.
but I wanted to show this to anyone at William and Mary who wants to think about adopting this to show you what sort of the nuts and bolts of the grading piece look like. And XPrep set this up for me completely initially, and then I've been modifying it since then. So essentially, what we have here are columns that are referring to what tab within the workbook is being graded. And so if you see 5.0 conclusions, that corresponds to this tab here. This is the cell reference within that tab that's being looked at. And this is the code, which basically says, margin of error 0.01 value. So what this refers to is if I look over here, so this whole range over here is what it is taking a look at. Actually, it's just the B column range, and it's comparing it to the numbers I have and saying this should be within a margin of error of zero point zero 0.01,
Mhm.
and then returning feedback. And these are the points that are assigned to it. So I can give feedback, and Oops. And basically, these are just free text things that I can use as feedback to the students.
Mhm.
And then values are just referring to the value. I can do formatting. Um, so this cell, for example, this is a function contains with an or statement. So I'm trying to capture all the different ways that they could be putting this into a formula in Excel. And of course, the faculty can control this to a certain extent. If you want them to use a certain function, you can certainly do that.
Mhm.
In some cases, I use a pull down menu inside of the tab so they can choose kind of like a multiple choice sort of thing. But it's really it's really adaptable, I guess. I mean, of course, there's certain limitations. It's not going to look at advanced text or anything like that. But I have used it. I have them write short answers where I have XPrep look for certain words, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
Mhm.
And so even as a, first pass kind of thing, I feel like I'm kind of pushing the boundaries of what this can do. Now, I will say one of the things that I try to be very um, careful about is preserving sort of the mystery of what XPrep does with the students. I mean, we don't want to get into a situation where we're like, well, it's looking at these cells and this is exactly right. So it's sort of a balance of giving them the instructions that they need to
Mhm.
apply it in context because of course the undergraduates are very intelligent. Their little brains start working immediately on exactly what is this looking at, so you have to think about how you're going to answer those questions.
Mhm.
um Now, one thing I will mention, this is not at all why I implemented XPrep, but just as a side, because they're going through the XPrep portal and they're downloading their own file, XPrep also tracks that file uniquely to that student's account. So we can receive reports of students copying and pasting or submitting each other's files, and we can track it all the way back to exactly which student.
Mhm.
Um, so that is useful. That's not
Mhm.
why I implemented it, but it is useful.
Mhm.
And I think that now in the business school, we have 3 or 4 faculty who are using it, some in electives, some in core classes. And I think that one of the things we need to do right now is really talk to each other about how we're using it because we're going to learn from each other and how to apply it better. So
Mhm.
I'm not trying to say that what I've got done here is at all best practice necessarily. It's a continuing evolution,
Mhm.
but I am now after several semesters of doing this, I'm now at a point where I feel like I'm completely receiving the benefit not only for my time but for the students being able to get feedback in real time, and those are the main reasons why we adopted it.
Mhm. And I think that's very important to reiterate. This is not only going to be beneficial for professors, because yes, it'll save you time, it'll make some things easier, but the students benefit from that direct feedback they get immediately. And
Yeah,
I've been that student who I'm waiting to hear back how I did on this assignment so I know what to do different in the next assignment. And so it's
right.
helpful when they get that feedback right away.
It is, and we're still tinkering with how best to do that. One of the things we're doing in the business school, we're going to meet because this is the same population of students. So they're seeing it perhaps their first semester in the business school, and then they see it maybe once or twice later. So one of the things we're working on right now is standardizing a little bit of how we present it to them
Mhm.
so that it's as consistent as possible, understanding that every professor is going to use it somewhat differently. We all have our own different policies. But I
Right.
feel like this encourages and enables a level of collaboration that we might otherwise find it difficult to find the time to do.
Mhm.
Because now that we have this common tool, we're like, well, it's really in our best interest and the students' best interest to think about how we can collaborate. And honestly, that's actually very rewarding.
Mhm.
It's not just about how much time I'm spending on this. It's, can I deliver what I want to deliver, the quality I want to deliver? Can I compare notes with my colleagues and maybe find better ways to do this?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I applaud you for that because that's definitely very important that there's that continued dialogue amongst the peers. Because at the end of the day, as a professor, we are all here to help the students and to get them to their next phase in life. And so I definitely see the value in that as well. So thank you for that.
Well, XPrep has been great to work with. I admit I'm a little bit of a pain. I usually find issues at like 11:30 at night, and you guys. Not that I want to encourage other faculty to find their issues at 11:30 at night, but I just will say that XPrep has been very responsive and very patient. And that you guys are, as you're expanding, I'm noticing you're really developing more materials. So it's more of a self-service kind of thing, which that's exciting because I know as faculty, one of the things I don't want to do is to tie myself to I have to deal with an external party every single time that I want to change something for my course. You guys really teach us and enable us to do these things for ourselves, which is the best.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for your time and your
You're very
insight.
welcome.
And I love working with you. And so I definitely appreciate the partnership. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.